What's up, guys? This is Jay from COI. So, I missed a few things this week, and this was one of them. Donald Trump had this amazing attack ad against Nancy Pelosi. And I think a lot of it is not just Pelosi, but also the Democrats. But Nancy Pelosi is, in a way, kind of a face of that, like, neoliberal, bleeding heart, always there for the downtrodden Democrat. And in this ad, they cut different parts from an interview that she did. And these excerpts that she did of this interview were about what was in her fridge, how she was getting through the pandemic. And they start off with her with these incredibly expensive chocolates and probably the most hipster ice cream I've ever seen. It's pretty disgusting. And the fact that she has $12,000 refrigerators side by side, two of them, because, somehow Nancy Pelosi apparently has like that many people in her house that she has to have, what looks like to me a restaurant's refrigeration system. But anyway, it goes in, and this ad shows clips of your average American as they're talking about starving to death right now. And the fear of it, there's no food in the cupboards. People are waiting in lines for hours at food banks running out of money. People who can't get on unemployment right now, people who don't have any money, people who are panicked and worried. And they keep cutting in these parts of Nancy Pelosi talking about her chocolate ice cream. And I, I think it's perfect. And I think it nails who Nancy Pelosi is and the neoliberal Democrat. Because for all their rhetoric, they're not going to do a damn thing to help people out. And nothing has been more evident than this pandemic, where we've seen proposals by Nancy Pelosi like the need to cut the salt tax. If you don't know what that is, that's fine because then you're not a millionaire. It really is a tax that really just affects millionaires. And right now, that's what she's pushing for. We should cut the salt tax. That'll help. Yeah, yeah, that's gonna help Jim, who just lost his job 3 weeks ago and is trying to get food at a food bank. Cutting the salt tax, that's really gonna make a big difference. Or here's another good one. Well, all the people who don't have jobs now, because you remember the idea of Medicare for all was just too radical, and they said, well, everyone's gonna have jobs. We give them Medicare for all, then maybe they won't have jobs anymore because they'll just take all that free health care. It was just too hard to do. By the way, you want to do it, now is a good time to do it. But yeah, no, well, people don't have health insurance now, so the Democrats say, well, we'll have the government pay for their Cobra insurance. They can get on Cobra and we'll pay for it. Completely omitting the fact that many of the Democrats and the elitist have connections to Cobra. So let's take one of the most vile insurance companies in America and now give them power by supplementing them with taxpayer money. It's a good idea, right? That helps the working man. Yeah, no, they have options right now. And now would be the best time to do it. Instead, they sit on their hands eating chocolate ice cream and letting Donald Trump be the more progressive one, doing things like passing the CARES Act, which in American history, this is the first time we're going to see a single payer healthcare system. Now, not completely. If you have COVID-19, the treatment, the testing, it's all going to be covered. And yeah, for the average person, well, duh, that should happen, but this wasn't even proposed by the Democrats. And it's a very, very small thing, but I hope people will say, well, I understand that for the treatment of COVID, we want to be covered, but um, well, what about cancer? That can also bankrupt you. Can we put cancer on that single payer system as well? And by the way, COVID-19 could be a thing for with us forever now. So we might see the CARES Act bleed into Medicare for all. It could happen. And who's going to be the one that actually did it? It was Donald freaking Trump. not Nancy Pelosi, not the left. No, he outmaneuvered them on the left. And why? Because they don't care. It's useless fucking rhetoric that comes out of their mouth. And that ad really, really exposes that. And you might be saying, if you're on the right, like, yeah, that's what we knew. That's our man. It's Donald. Well, so as I'm talking about useless rhetoric, not meaningless, but useless, I can go no further than Donald Trump. Because, yeah, in this kind of instance, you totally win the fight. Um, but you also have to deal with the president who is actively causing people to ingest and and inject and get Lysol and UV rays into their body because he is a buffoon, a complete childlike buffoon. Lysol had to issue an ad that said, "No, no, please do not drink or," and I've seen this, or vape our product. You should not vape, ingest, inject any sort of disinfectant. It will kill you. That's the president. But it's worse than that because you could say, well, he was kidding. Now, I saw it, and unless he's the world's worst comic, he wasn't kidding. But to go further, he had another moment that a lot of my right wing and I would say more libertarian friends have been talking about. And that is in one of these press briefings, he went against the globalists. He came out and he attacked the globalists. He said, this problem that we're facing in America is due to globalists. And he outlined the supply chain and the ineffectiveness of it. The fact that we don't have the proper PPE we need and that we have to get it from a different country. Um, the fact that most of our medicine is in a different country, that our trade is completely malfeasant because of the way like oil is being handled right now. Things like that that are very substantial to our country's health and well-being, not only economically but healthcare wise as well. And he was totally right. He really was. But now we're going to get into him being basically like Nancy Pelosi. And it's this way. Look, as a progressive, that's one thing I agree with Trump on. And it was one thing he let me down on. We want to do away with NAFTA. We want to do away with TPP. That's one of our main things. Progressives and people on the right, in certain sects, some people argue it's the paleocon, some people say it's the alt-right. I'm not exactly sure. I tend to think it would be the populist right, because I'm more the populist left. We all agree on that one thing, that sending jobs overseas is only hurting America. And I think a lot of the other countries coming in on this idea, and they're seeing what we were talking about. They're understanding why it's not racist to say, no, I don't want China to be building iPhones. I want Nevada to build iPhones. It's not a racist idea for um, more of your own countrymen to have more jobs. I don't think we should do away with trade. That would be a huge mistake. We do it out of necessity. But for the most part, we make everything in-house. As much stuff as we possibly can. I did use the iPhone, and it's one of the worst excuses. I know. It's way cheaper and better. No one's going to make it. But what I hinted at, though, is part of the issue. Why globalism will always be a thing. And no, by the way, it's not this monster and this group that Alex Jones talks about. It's the rich and it's the elites and it's crony capitalism is what it is. Because they're always going to keep it going. Because they're always going to make more money if a little Chinese kid is making your shoes and we're buying them for $2 a pair and we can sell them for $200. As where if you make those shoes in Tennessee, they're going to probably cost $50, $60 a pair, and we're still going to want them for $200. You're making a lot less money. And they're always going to keep that alive. And there's nothing we're going to do about that. I find it odd that my friends on the left and even my alt-right friends, so to speak, don't call this problem out. They have a bigger problem with social justice warriors and things like that than they do with this, which is fundamental to our country's well-being. And it was something that their president, Donald Trump, promised he would do. He was going to restructure these trade deals. He was going to bring jobs back. This is what he was going to do. And it was the only reason why I was like, hey, maybe this guy gets it in some way. His rhetoric is completely awful. There's so many things about this guy. He does not understand the basics of what to do. But if he gets this done, this was a painful step, but it was a step in the right direction. Needless to say, he didn't do any of that, and you didn't have to go very far to see that everything that came out of his mouth, and still does, about globalism is nothing but useless rhetoric. Completely useless rhetoric. And I say that knowing this. So there's the Buy America Act, and it says that everything the federal government buys has to be made in America. But there's a caveat there, and it says, or its allies. So you can buy something in China and Mexico, wherever, and it'll still say made in America. Well, Donald Trump could easily put an executive order in and say only America. And that would increase our manufacturing here in America substantially. We would start seeing more and more factories pop up just on that alone. Not to mention, he could say, look, if you outsource jobs, if you're an American company and you outsource jobs, you don't get any tax breaks. You don't get a bailout. Instead, he fights for places like the cruise liners, who don't even pay taxes in America, by the way. But those cruise lines, yeah, they got bailed out. They got bailed out by our tax dollars, and they don't contribute a fucking thing to this country. They had their own little special bailout section. He could have done that. He could have cut them out completely or forced them to keep jobs here. And they're just one of many companies that get away with this. Donald Trump has all of that right in his hand. And it wouldn't take an act of Congress or the House, anything. He could do it with executive orders in a second. He won't do it. He won't do it because he's in on all of it. He is, in fact, them in this situation. And not just because his daughter and son in law also have massive trade deals in China, and they do, as his daughter's clothing brand is all made in China. Most of his stuff is made in China. They also have personal relationships with people in I would say people in high places, in places like China, where manufacturing is mostly done. A point of this entire episode is if you're a person on the left and you love the Yaz Queen, the girl boss that is Nancy Pelosi, and you think, well, it's because she speaks for the people, because she's going to protect us, because she's fighting for us. Did you see her rip up Trump's speech? That was so epic. No. It was meaningless rhetoric. All that comes out of her mouth is meaningless rhetoric. And if you're on the right and you see that and you say, yeah, screw her. Screw the left. They're not helping us. But Donald, that's my man. He's got me. He's doing the right stuff. He's fighting for the working man. Understand he's the same. They're all the same. There's a few of them that not everything that comes out of their mouth is useless rhetoric. And those are like the really pristine Josh Holloway, AOC, sometimes Mike Lee, Ro Khanna. Matt Gaetz. And I know if you know about politics, you're bouncing back and forth. You're like, wait, no, I don't like him. I like him. I don't like her. But yeah, no, those are the only ones who actually don't just throw off useless rhetoric to get power, to get your vote, to make you think they're fighting for them. Anyway, I'm curious what you guys think about this. Uh, on a really sad note, as where you do have what would arguably be the head of the Democratic Party, Nancy Pelosi, offering to pay for your Cobra and completely spouting about she cares about people as she, well, looks like an aristocrat. And you have Donald Trump identifying the problem, but arguably being part of the problem. This weekend we saw the most confirmed cases at one time, in one day. It was 51,500. If that gives you an idea, prior to that, it was 33,000 in one day. And remember they said the peak was supposed to happen over Easter weekend? It's the 27th, and I know it depends on where you're at. But for America, for the whole of it, the peak was supposed to be 2 weeks ago. And Saturday night, it was, no, it was Friday night. Yeah, it was Friday night. No, no, I'm right. It was Saturday night. Sorry, 51,500 cases in a 24-hour period. Um, Not that I revel in this at all, or not that I enjoy saying I was right, because I may not be, but there's going to be a significant amount of those people who are going to pop up in a different stat. And as where people are worried about reopening, we're going to see that more dark stat start raising as well. I don't know when we're going to get out of this, but don't be too quickly to assume that things are dying down. When we have days of 17,000, 20,000 cases, just be happy that that's where they're at instead of worrying about the next step. Let's wait that out for a couple weeks. Let's get down to 8,000 and we ride that out, and then we say, okay, look, now we're starting to have reason. We can start thinking about moving. But we play it like this, guys. It's not going to be good. I think the best example I've heard is it's going to be like trying to herd a bunch of cats, and it's exactly that hits the nail on the head. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys. You have a great weekend.